When a flight attendant decided she had the authority to judge who should fly in luxury, she made a mistake so severe it cost her everything. Her words carried such venom that the entire crew was left speechless. But the moment she stepped out of line, her downfall began. What happened next was beyond belief. Jasmine Carter, a 36-year-old visionary entrepreneur, had just emerged from the most grueling year of her life. After months of relentless negotiations and sleepless nights, she had finally secured the acquisition of Orion Airways, a boutique airline known for its premium services. This wasn't just a professional win, it was deeply personal. Every milestone in her career had been met with resistance, skepticism, and sideways glances. But today was meant to be a celebration, her first official flight under her newly acquired airline. A journey to Los Angeles that symbolized her hard-fought success. Arriving at the private airstrip early, Jasmine, ever the embodiment of punctuality and grace, stepped out of her sleek black sedan. She was dressed in a tailored navy blue business suit, her signature oversized sunglasses shielding her eyes, exuding a presence that commanded respect. The sun cast a golden glow against the polished concrete as she made her way to the check-in desk. Inside the terminal, everything reflected quiet sophistication, gleaming floors, hushed conversations, and the subtle scent of freshly brewed espresso mingling with the rich aroma of fine leather. However, the moment she reached the boarding area, she was met with an unexpected roadblock. Victoria Lane, a 29-year-old flight attendant with icy blue eyes and a smile so forced it barely concealed her true thoughts. Victoria's posture stiffened as soon as she spotted Jasmine, her gaze scanning her with thinly veiled judgment. "Excuse me," Victoria said, her tone laced with artificial politeness. "This section is for private jet passengers only." Jasmine tilted her head slightly, amusement flickering in her dark eyes. "I'm aware. This is my flight." A flicker of confusion crossed Victoria's face before she quickly masked it with a tight-lipped smile. "Your flight?" she echoed, her disbelief barely contained. Her eyes flicked over Jasmine's outfit, as though she were assessing an uninvited guest at an exclusive event. "I'm sorry, but passengers typically don't look like you." The air grew thick with an unspoken weight. Jasmine remained composed, though a familiar irritation simmered beneath her cool exterior. She had encountered this attitude before, but each time, it struck a nerve. Taking a controlled breath, she refused to let this woman see even a hint of frustration. But Victoria wasn't done yet. Lowering her voice, she leaned in as if sharing a secret. "Maybe you're with the cleaning staff," or she let out a soft, mocking chuckle. "Maintenance? This lounge is reserved for high-profile clients." A slow smile spread across Jasmine's face, one that carried no warmth, only restrained power. Adjusting her sunglasses, she spoke in a tone so even, it was almost chilling. "I've already checked in. Now, if you'll step aside, I'd like to board my aircraft." Victoria's expression hardened. Though she reluctantly moved, the resentment in her eyes remained as clear as day. Jasmine had seen this look before, the silent declaration that she was unwelcome. Stepping onto the aircraft, she exhaled quietly. Another day, another test of patience. But something about this particular encounter felt different, as if the storm had only just begun. The private jet's interior was nothing short of spectacular. Exquisite leather seats meticulously stitched, polished wood gleaming beneath soft cabin lighting, and fresh orchids adding a touch of elegance. Every inch of the space spoke of refinement. But Victoria Lane, the flight attendant who had already made up her mind about Jasmine, wasn't ready to let it go. She strutted down the aisle with the confidence of someone who believed they were untouchable, stopping right beside Jasmine, who was calmly reviewing business documents on her tablet. "Impressive, isn't it?" Victoria cooed, her voice coated with false sweetness. She leaned in ever so slightly, her next words dripping with condescension. "I bet this is the first time you've ever been surrounded by this level of luxury. Take it in while you can, sweetheart, because let's be honest, this isn't exactly your world." Jasmine paused mid-swipe on her screen. Slowly, she turned to meet Victoria's piercing gaze. Her expression was unreadable, serene, yet dangerous. "Excuse me?" Jasmine's voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut. Victoria blinked, momentarily thrown off by her poised reaction. But instead of backing down, she smirked and pushed forward. "Oh, honey," she said, louder this time, ensuring the few crew members nearby could hear. "You really have no clue who you're dealing with, do you? Let me make it simple for you. You don't belong here." Jasmine's grip on her tablet tightened, though she remained outwardly composed. Her silence only seemed to fuel Victoria's arrogance. "You're just some." Victoria paused dramatically, savoring the moment. Then, leaning in closer, she delivered her final insult with a venomous smirk. "You're just some charity case who lucked her way into a first-class seat. And honestly, I don't see why I have to pretend otherwise." The next moment unfolded in slow motion. With deliberate precision, Victoria leaned forward and spat directly into Jasmine's face. The cabin went deathly silent. A few other crew members, who had been preparing refreshments nearby, stood frozen in shock. Their wide eyes darted between the two women, but not a single one dared to speak. Jasmine remained still, the warm humiliation trickling down her cheek. The moment stretched unbearably, tension crackling in the air like an approaching storm. And then, Jasmine calmly set down her tablet. The storm was about to break. The air inside the cabin was thick with tension, so heavy it felt like gravity itself had doubled. The kind of silence that grips a room when something irreversible has just happened. Jasmine Carter closed her eyes briefly, inhaling deeply as she steadied herself. She didn't react with anger, nor did she lash out. Instead, she reached in her pocket, pulling out a silk handkerchief with the kind of measured grace that carried more weight than any outburst ever could. Without a word, she dabbed her face, wiping away the insult with slow, deliberate movements. Then, she rose. Her posture was unwavering, her expression calm but commanding. She straightened her blazer, adjusted her cuffs, and locked eyes with Victoria Lane. "You," Jasmine said, her voice as smooth as steel, "just made the worst mistake of your career." Victoria barely had time to process the words before the cockpit door swung open. Out stepped Captain Michael Donovan, a seasoned pilot in his early 40s, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed, his uniform crisp. His sharp eyes scanned the tense scene before him, his brows knitting together in irritation. "What's going on here?" His voice carried the kind of authority that demanded immediate answers. Victoria, always quick with a well-rehearsed excuse, opened her mouth, no doubt ready to spin the situation in her favor. But then Captain Donovan's gaze landed on Jasmine. Recognition struck him like a lightning bolt. "Miss Carter," he said, his tone shifting from stern to almost apologetic. His face paled as the realization sank in. I wasn't aware you had already boarded." Victoria's smirk evaporated in an instant. She glanced between the captain and Jasmine, confusion morphing into horror. And in that moment, she finally understood. She hadn't just insulted a passenger. She had just disrespected the owner of the airline. Jasmine's gaze never wavered. She didn't need to raise her voice. The weight of her words was enough. "I have one fundamental rule," she said, her tone even, deliberate. "Every customer is to be treated with respect. I don't care who they are or where they come from. But what I absolutely will not tolerate," she took a slow step forward, "is discrimination from my employees." The words landed like a hammer. Victoria visibly swallowed, her previous arrogance crumbling into sheer panic. This is all just a misunderstanding," Victoria stammered, the confidence in her voice completely gone. "I didn't know." Jasmine held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "You didn't bother to know. And that's exactly the problem." Victoria opened her mouth again, desperate to salvage the situation, but no words came out. She turned to Captain Donovan for help, but he simply took a step back, shaking his head in silent disapproval. The rest of the crew, who had been silent witnesses to the entire debacle, suddenly found their voices. One by one, murmurs of agreement rippled through the cabin. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Carter," one attendant said, stepping forward. "We had no idea this was happening," another added. The shift in energy was immediate. No one wanted to be associated with Victoria's behavior. Captain Donovan, Having regained his composure, squared his shoulders. "Ms. Carter," he said, his voice full of professionalism, "I will personally ensure this incident is reported and handled accordingly. This kind of conduct has no place at Orion Airways." Jasmine gave him a firm nod before turning her attention back to Victoria. For a long moment, she simply stared, letting the silence stretch. Then, with an air of finality, she spoke. "You're finished here. Gather your belongings and leave." Victoria's face crumpled. For a split second, it looked as if she might plead. But one glance around the cabin, at the unsympathetic faces, the eyes refusing to meet hers, told her there was no coming back from this. Without another word, she turned and shuffled toward the exit, her once confident stride reduced to a defeated retreat. Jasmine exhaled slowly, sinking back into her seat. With a final swipe of her silk handkerchief, she wiped away the last trace of the insult, then tucked it neatly away. Around her, the crew's demeanor had changed. Suddenly attentive, their movements crisp, their voices carrying a note of respect. The engines hummed as the jet prepared for takeoff. Jasmine turned toward the window, her reflection barely visible in the glass. A small smile touched the corner of her lips, not of triumph, but of quiet satisfaction. This moment wasn't just about her. It was about setting a standard. It was about sending a message, not just to her company, but to anyone who believed they had the right to decide who belonged and who didn't. This wasn't just a personal victory. It was a lesson in respect delivered at 40,000 feet. Now let's talk. How would you have handled this situation if you were in Jasmine's position? What are your thoughts on how she chose to stand her ground? Have you or someone you know ever faced something similar? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and share it to help spread awareness about the importance of respect, fairness, and equality. Stories like this aren't just meant to be told. They're meant to inspire change. Let's keep the conversation going.